You're watching Analysts After Dark, an underground hideaway where insatiably curious analysts examine provocative project problems, share salacious secrets, and establish a covert network of co-conspirators. Step into the dark with your hosts, AJ Hawley and Steve Jones.
Well, hello there, Steve. How are you?
Hi there. I'm dandy.
Happy December.
Absolutely. You know what puts me in a good mood? Listening to holiday music on 1.5 or 2 times speed.
Like the Chipmunks? Like Alvin and the Chipmunks?
No, like classic Christmas tunes.
Okay.
It's more fun when it's faster. Or redo them as heavy metal or power metal and then play it fast. Oh yeah, that gets the day going.
Yeah, I'll go with you on the power metal one. That one I'm cool with. Actually, I was putting up lights this weekend, and I'm jamming out to some heavy metal Christmas music, which is fantastic, and a little bit of Trans-Siberian Orchestra because you kind of have to. It's a
absolutely.
staple. But that, and then there was just some also house club music that was playing pretty loudly from our garage, and our neighbors like, I feel like this should be calling all reverse skaters or couple skates, real loud. So it's fun.
Couple skates.
Yeah. He's like, what's going on at your house? And I'm on the roof and I can barely hear the music, but apparently the whole neighborhood could. Whatever.
Nice.
But you're looking.
We had snow this morning, so I opted to go with a snowy apparel when I went to work today.
I like it.
An office day. Thank you.
Where did you get it? Because I'm curious of like, how do you get a vest and a tie that all comes together like that?
And actually, there's cufflinks and a pocket square as well.
Okay.
It's a whole kit.
Yeah.
Amazon has wonderful things.
It also, yes, that's true. That's true.
It also has a lot of trash, but
yeah. My problem is I never understand like the sizing, and so I'll get it, and then it's just I look like a kid's medium, and it's the dad stretched into his kid's Halloween costume. So I have to,
impersonating the Hulk, just not green.
Yeah. The Hulk after he changes, and then he's like wearing Bruce Banner's clothes still. Like, yeah, that 100%.
You're Red Hulk.
We have a fun show today, an amazing guest as always, but this one is going to be one of my favorites because I get to nerd out a little bit more than usual. And I mean, I'm pretty nerdy anyway, but this is going to be extra nerd. So I'm going to need you, Steve, to bring us back a little bit into reality. But we're going to talk to Azure McFarlane. I know her personally. She's a friend of mine. She's been doing some awesome work with the Power Platform School, which we'll talk about a little bit. And just she does awesome stuff all the time anyway. And she's a great person. I got to meet up with her in DC the last 2 times that we were there for the Project World Business Analyst World Conference. So it was a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about her. So Azure McFarlane is a senior consultant at Hitachi Solutions and a Microsoft Business Applications MVP in the Washington, D.C. area. She has a background in biochemistry and discovered Power Automate on the job in 2019, where it was love at first flow. That's a great pun, by the way. If you're not in the industry, flow is what it was called before, and then I had to, explain it. But it's a good, solid wordplay. Nerd. Azure serves as head of global partnerships and growth for the Women in Tech user group and nonprofit Textilers, based out of Lagos, Nigeria, and volunteers with various Power Platform upskilling initiatives such as Power Platform School and Tech Fluent, teaching Power Automate and virtual agents. So, without further ado, let's bring on Azure McFarlane.
Hello, y'all. How you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. That music, that intro music really had me just like jamming out here. Do you guys watch Bob's Burgers?
I haven't in a while. I watched a few seasons of it, but...
Okay, there's an episode where like Jimmy Pesto, it has like headphones on and he's just like caressing himself, as he's listening to his music, and that's what I was doing before I came on camera. So nice. Good job. Love it.
Excellent.
it sets the vibe for like a loungy experience. So
Yes.
that's what we're going for. You know, just
I feel
back.
adequately lounged. Yes.
Are you gonna move back into the chair behind you and then just sit back there?
Oh, I should have. That
Yeah.
would have been a good one. I don't know if my camera reaches that far though, so I could even turn on the overhead light, and it would have just been like a street light over the top. Next time.
Next time? Okay.
Yeah.
We can do that.
Well, thank you for so much for being on the show today. This is going to be a lot of fun. I'm already excited. We were talking in the green room about all the Power Automate stuff that's new out there and some of the experiences you have. So, but let's talk a little bit. First of all, we have one question for you.
Yes.
And we asked you this on the survey when you applied to be on the show. And it says, what's your favorite after dark activity? And you said, couponing with a question mark.
Wait, what was that?
You said couponing with a
Oh,
question. You're like, you have a knack for finding deals.
I do. I got into like extreme couponing when we were all stuck at home, and it's just become this very fun activity to try and get the best deal. So usually I'm at like CVS doing these deals, and I'll do things for, you know, like laundry detergent and toiletries and yada, yada, yada. And then I end up donating the stuff that I'm not using. So
Okay.
it just became kind of fun because if you get, I don't know, like 10 things of laundry detergent for $5 and a bunch of toothbrushes, like obviously I can't use that, but the local shelter can. So it was just a lot of fun. And so I enjoy couponing.
There was a show called like Extreme Couponing a while back, wasn't there?
Yeah, I think it was on TLC maybe, but it's been
Could be.
a couponing. I don't know. I don't know if it still exists, to be honest.
It does.
Yeah, there are YouTube channels though of people who really lean hard into the couponing and will teach you the strategy and deals and everything, which I find fun. So one of the channels that I watch, or you know, you can listen to like a podcast. It's called Coupon with Star, and this is woman in Georgia, and I just love her. She does like Kroger and Walgreens and CVS and a bunch of other, and it's really relaxing to my brain for her to be like, this is how I worked out the deals, and here are the coupons that I used, and it's so satisfying to just watch like as the register is calculating everything and they start taking the coupons off, and she gets to like zero. Sometimes the stores even pay her, and I love that for her. Yeah, so
well.
So what's the most extreme one you've had?
I'm sorry, repeat that for me.
What's the most extreme couponing you've done? Best deal.
Ooh, interesting. Usually like getting a bunch of toiletries. I'd have to show you pictures because the volume of things just doesn't really like translate just talking about it. But imagine getting like 5 things of like the large Tide detergents and like 25 toothbrushes and several toothpastes at one time and deodorant and just a bunch of things that you'll never run out of. I think I got a haul for like $1.19 at one point, and it was easily like $300 worth of stuff.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun. I think it's a fun game for me, and maybe this is, you know, part of nerding out, but I'm like, yes, this is what relaxes me is trying to figure out the best deals. And I'll sit down with like the weekly ad from CVS and like plan out what I'm going to get. And then when you go there, they have more things tagged than is in the advertisement. You just like stand in the aisle and you have your list of things that you're planning to buy, and then you can bundle the deals. And CVS gives you like cash back, like a CVS cash that you can roll into like your next purchases. So that's how the couponing works. Like they have an app. They've got manufacturer coupons and then coupons based off of your spending habits that you can use. And you can pair them together, and then use also like paper coupons, and then you match the deals to get, they'll say, you know, buy $15 worth of Colgate and get $5 cash back, you know, and then you take that $5 cash back and you roll it into like the next purchase that you have, or, you know, anyway.
Okay.
It sounds like a gambling addiction is what it sounds like. And you're like, oh, just keep rolling. Just keep going. Hit me.
Yeah.
And
I've never heard anybody call it that before, but I guess that would be the, okay, I might need to go off and think about this a little bit.
And my next question, have you found a way to automate that? Any part of that?
Yes. So I have ideas. And now that I'm sliding into my season of what's supposed to be like rest from more community activities. Like you guys got in at like the last bit. There's this, and I have a user group meetup like next weekend. But my plan is so every week, or CVS is going to change their deals to every 2 weeks now. You have to go in and select all the coupons that you want. They aren't automatically like on your, little rewards card. I want to automate it so that every Sunday it just goes in and selects all the coupons for me and lets me know what coupons are available. And then I can just do my planning. Else you're kind of just like scrolling through like a small screen or, on your computer doing it. So just send me a summary of all the deals available. And that's my plan for winter to do that.
Well, and then could you not take that and put that into a machine learning model and then say, based upon what I normally buy, just go ahead and get these things on like immediately?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. We'll have to think about that one. I don't know if it works that way, but we'll figure it out.
You're talking about data that ends up being stored. Do you really want that out there?
Well, so you would store
couponing habits.
Yeah, you would store within your own environment. So like you could do your own machine learning model on things that you buy and purchase habits on receipts. Just upload several of your receipts and then find the same things over time. I feel like it could happen.
Okay.
Reach out to multiple stores, get all their.
I'm putting this in my back pocket because I was planning on using RPA or desktop automation to do this.
Okay.
So yeah, I hadn't really thought of like a cloud alternative because CVS does not have, there's no custom connector yet made for CVS, although maybe that should be part of,
No API yet.
You can do the API, or you could, if you get those in email, you can do them that way.
Okay, guys, you're adding more ideas to the downtime. I'm going to figure this out. I was literally just going to use desktop automation, just like select all the coupons, right? Iterate through how many of these elements there are in the screen. When it's done, that's it. Put it in a list, send off, like in a table in an email. But okay, I might be able to extend this further. I have to say, like lately, so I recently moved and don't have the same amount of space that I did to be able to coupon as much until I get some storage space. So I got to settle back into the routine of doing it. So I think that'll be a good activity for my rest period, however long that lasts. But now I can take it further than what I had before in mind. Thanks, guys.
This sounds like the creation of an app that you could put out there and make money from it.
For all the other extreme couponers, could just collate all the coupon deals for the week. I'd have to figure that one out. Because you get personalized coupons too, like not just the manufacturer's ones. So, and every once in a while, like CVS today sent me like, oh, here's an extra 20% off coupon. So, okay.
This has to already exist though at the corporate level because that's how they give you personalized coupons.
Yeah.
So
right, but
I'm all about recreating the wheel. Yeah, I'm all about recreating the wheel and adding a few things to it. So
if you're personalizing the wheel, it's not really recreating it. It's just saying like now making applicable to me and works out for me.
So many flows, so little time.
True. That's true. I have to say I am not the couponing person. I find my time valuable and 50 cents for me to clip it out and whatever every time it adds up, sure. But at the same time, like my free time is worth so much more than that.
Okay.
And I would rather go just go to one store, get all of the things in the one store, and then just leave. Grocery shopping is the worst.
It is. So I don't do it at the grocery stores. I feel like, to be honest, at least the grocery store near me, usually just their weekly ad sales are good enough. So I don't do that with the grocery stores. It's just usually with like CVS for toiletries and shampoo and snacks and whatnot. I don't mess with the grocery list at this point because I feel like when I was a kid, I grew up in a family that couponed, not extreme couponing, but couponed.
Yeah.
And there's less things available now than there were before. Because you could open up the Sunday paper and find a coupon for a lot of the products that you use. And now I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't eat, I don't know, Captain Crunch. And it'll be like, 50 cents off 3 boxes of Captain Crunch. And you're like, well, I don't eat that. That's not really useful. So, Yeah.
But they
Yes.
also were large print ads. And then you would have the Sunday paper that was, you know, like the
Correct.
phone book thick, which
Yes.
is 2 old references in one. And then now you can get those in your email because now it saves them a whole bunch of money and they can target you individually.
I still really like the paper ads.
Yeah, me too.
Just because sometimes with the screens, it's too small, it's too condensed, and I like paper. I like being able to circle things and be like, yeah, I'm gonna use this. It's the same thing. Like I still use a paper planner. I'll use Google Calendar to put my appointments in, but I use a
Google
paper planner
Calendar.
to write down. Yeah, because I get the reminders for things. So, but I use a paper planner to write all my tasks for the day, the month, the year, and mark them off. And I just paper notebook does something for me because I'm also known for not charging my phone, even though I work from home, and I'll get to the store and it's dead. So
you like the tactile feel.
I do. I have an e-reader as well, but I still really love paper books. I like being able to see the thing and touch it and the feel of the paper and the smell of the paper. I love a good library. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Library card is a wonderful thing.
Oh, it is. It takes you so many places and your imagination and whatnot too. So yes, paper.
So you can use a tool like it's a book called Rocketbook or a tool like Rocketbook. Have you seen those?
Yep.
And it's almost dry erase.
I don't. Oh, you know what I was thinking of? I was thinking of like the Kindle Scribe or.
That's like the technical version of it, but this is more like an actual notebook, and it's like it's a vinyl, I think. And so as you're writing, and then you can take that, it has a QR code on that page, and then you can upload it to their app. Then you can use cool things like Flow to do stuff from there. And then now your life has just gone boom, automation.
I'm looking at this now.
We're giving too many ideas.
Honest, yeah. This is a lot, and I love you all for this. Wow, yeah, I've never heard of this.
Ask your special someone for that for Christmas, and then now you're like, hey, this would be really cool. Now you can test it out, and then you can.
This would be. This is great. Yeah, I've never heard of this before. I've seen I can't think of the other non-Amazon alternative right now, but there are the notebooks that they're slightly electronic, but they're kind of like the e-reader kind of screen, and you write on it and can transcribe that and save the notes too. I can't for the life of me remember what it is. I don't own one.
Yeah.
But okay. This is much more reasonably priced than that too.
That's true. And it has a whole bunch of different templates. So you've got a calendar in there, you've got like task lists, and you've got it's a lot. The bee's knees, if you will.
Okay. I do have things to put on my wish list. I always say like, oh, I don't know if like what I would want to buy kind of thing, or I put things on a list and then forget about them. And now I'm trying to be more conscious about things that I might want, and give them to somebody, right? A wish list. Cause like for Secret Santa this year with a friend group, I was like, I don't know what I would actually want, but looking at some expired wish lists, I was like, oh, these still apply. So I'm going to put that on the active one. And
there you go.
So want versus want.
Womp, 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 womp. That's the one. Remarkable. That's the one. Okay. I just saw somebody's Jennifer's comment. Remarkable. That is the one. Yes. I could not remember why okay. Yes. Thank you, people. That was great.
And I think everybody should have their own little list of gift ideas. Write it down and have that in a separate place. So when somebody asks, what do you want? There's stuff I want right there.
So one of my automation things that I'm working on is automating purchasing things from my wish list, and having like a self-care kind of workflow, and using desktop automation to take a wish list. And typically it needs to be from like the same place so that the way that I design it works well enough. But yeah, automating wish lists. So having that in a central place, having automation once a month, pick something at random and delivering it to my doorstep. And then that way I still get what I want, but I don't have to remember to buy it, or, because I think my wish list is typically a graveyard where dreams go to die. And we're trying to remedy that. So I will be a new person in 2024 thanks to automation.
You know, I'm going to suggest one more thing.
Okay, lay it on me.
Have your special someone give you those things so that that person, maybe you buy it, but then they give that to you. And then now it's everybody, it's cohesion. It's everything working together. It's self-care, but it's
Honey,
also,
I got this for you.
yeah. And you're like, oh my gosh. And then, yeah.
Well, I feel like I have given him a gift because I've automated our toilet paper, like a DIY subscription from Costco. So
Okay.
I'm, yeah, and I can automate my own presents to myself, have him give them to me. I like close the loop.
Did you do that automation on the toilet, or was it like?
No, I needed my desk. I needed my actual computer for this one. No flows on my phone. None of that.
Different kind of flow. Understood.
Different kind of.
Wow, where did this conversation go?
Down the toilet, Steve. It went down the toilet. It did.
Yep.
No flush sound for that one. On board, not have that one yet. You should add it.
I don't have. I've got this. That works. It was a funny. It was a
That's
funny.
one of my
It
favorites.
was a funny. It was definitely a funny.
So you got into automation, not being remotely, I'll say remotely technical, but borderline technical. You didn't have a technical background at all. You got into it from a completely different path, which I think people on this show or people that are tuning into the show would that recognize that, because they would also have been in potentially different spots going into business analysis. So can you talk a little bit about your background and like how you got into working in automation and just figuring that out?
Yeah, sure. So I have a background in biochemistry, like you mentioned. When I graduated, I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for about a decade or so, just a little bit shy of a decade. And I worked in manufacturing. So I worked with drugs that were for diseases that you never would want. But these drugs are for like lupus, so just like very serious diseases. And the drugs that we were working with were immunotherapies. So they were made from not just like a pill, usually they're injectables, because they're made out of antibodies that work with your immune system. And so I worked in several different roles over the 10 years, going from being a manufacturing operator, like pushing the buttons on the manufacturing floor on the machines, to designing the manufacturing processes to make sure these drugs are fit for human consumption or injection. And then moved to project management and change management, and worked some supply chain and some data and analytics stuff. So when I was working in change management, Microsoft actually had, I guess it was a sales rep that came to our campus. And I remember getting an email from our newly minted digital data and analytics group saying, why don't you come to this class to help you automate some redundant computer tasks? And I said, hey, I have the time to go to, some class. They didn't mention that Microsoft was on site or anything to that effect, but it sounded interesting.
Mhm.
And showed up, and they were working on a workflow, an automated workflow for approvals. So whatever scenario you can imagine for needing an approval, from a manager, or, document review or invoices. And we just worked through that for, 6 to 8 hours for the class. And I left there thinking, like, I don't understand really half of what we worked on, because it was a bit more of a complex workflow that the rep was going through. And I wish I remembered her name. I'm going to reach out to a friend, because I would love to be like, hey, guess where I am now, And it was just really, it was really great. And I left there thinking, oh, now I have some ideas of things that I could automate. And my first workflow was a copy file and a replace file in SharePoint flow, something super basic.
Mhm.
And at the time, we had a safety team on site that would have a safety topic for everybody to review in their morning musters, like come Monday, or first time like a department would get together for the week. Except that file, it lived on their SharePoint site that we all had access to. Sometimes they would send it out on Mondays. Sometimes they would forget and send it out on Tuesdays. Sometimes they wouldn't send it at all. Sometimes they'd only send it to managers. But the idea was, right, everybody at site, regardless of what role you worked in, was to be reviewing the safety topic. And because of that, I figured it was a good use case to be like, well, why don't I just copy the file into our, SharePoint site that's, Teams interface, and then whatever's there on Monday morning, whether it copied a file that had been edited or not, we knew that was the most current file, and we never had to worry about it again. So it was just, I don't know, it took me longer to automate it right as a beginner, just because I wasn't familiar with the platform, than to actually just go to the link on their SharePoint site to grab the document. But I figured this would be a good idea to use automation for. And so that was the first one, and things just kind of took off from there. And soon it was just, I was building some productivity workflows for myself. So if my manager emails me, send me a message in Teams instead. I even made flows that were, okay, not just notify me in Teams, now let me respond to my email from within Teams. So just some kind of fun enhancing things for meeting minutes, like weekly meeting minutes. Why do you have to go and save as the Word document to a new title and remove all the stuff from there? Have Power Automate do it for you. And then it scaled up to the safety team coming to me asking for some solution that would help them manage adverse events, because we had a SharePoint list that people would, enter their incident into. There was one email that came from like a SharePoint 2010 workflow to let the safety team know and the managers at site know there was an adverse event. So a slip, trip, or fall, a potential, for harm, an electrical hazard, who's a manufacturing plant. And they were like, well, we get these adverse events. We don't have a central tracking system. We don't notate this anywhere. Everybody's keeping an individual list of what they're working on. Can you, and there's a lot of manual follow-up if we send people paperwork by hand that we're renaming, each of these files that people need to fill out. Can you help us out? And so I automated the process for them, that when an adverse event comes into this SharePoint list, it kicks off putting an item in a SharePoint list for tracking reasons.
Right.
So they could monitor a status of like, is this completed? Who the manager is, who the affected employee is, like all these details, would send the affected employee and their manager an approval. Like I just used like an adaptive card with a button with a link to the documentation that they needed to fill out, a summary of their adverse event that they, started. And all they needed to do was click on the link. It would open up an Office 365. They'd fill out the information and press the button to say, I'm done. And then it would report this back to the safety team, update that status list, and then tag them all in a Teams message and say, so-and-so has completed their investigation paperwork. Please proceed to scheduling an investigation. And a few more enhancements in there, but they went from being 6 months behind on their investigations for safety incidences to caught up in 6 weeks. And they stayed caught up for 18 months until Global Safety came up with, an app to do this reporting for them. So that was probably my first big business use case that I did for a site of 600 people or so. Wow. And it was, I learned a lot from that, quite frankly. And then they'd come back and be like, can we add this feature to it? I'm like, yeah, let's find out. I mean, sometimes I didn't know the answer, but I was like, I'm willing to take the time to do this. So that's how I got into Power Automate. And this was about 4 years ago. And then I switched into a role at my site. They didn't have anybody with the Automate proficiency that I had. And I stayed with them until I transitioned to consulting just about 2 years ago. But in the meantime, it was just a series of working on workflows. I taught my company's Power Automate Bootcamp, because IT came to me and asked me to help out with that. So I designed like a curriculum and taught our employees and was posting little tutorials in our internal Facebook group. And somebody from work who was working on Power Platform adoption noticed what I was putting in the Facebook group, and his name was Simon Owen. He was like, keep doing this. He worked in the UK, and he was like, just keep doing this. And then when the idea of a boot camp came around, he was like, hey, we'd love for you to teach this. And I was like, I don't know if I really know enough. And he's like, I know you'll figure it out. And he also introduced me to Textilers. Okay. So it just, community has played a really big role, and just a curiosity to want to do it, and never saw myself getting into this space, quite frankly. Yeah. But here I am. It's been, my life looks completely different than it did 4 years ago. I would say even 2 years ago, quite frankly. And it's been really great. Really, really great. So
You
just
went from
pure obsession.
having no idea of like this existed or being very new to it to a Microsoft MVP in 4 years.
Yeah, yeah. I think I got my nomination in maybe roughly about a year for MVP, but I know like MVPs do different things for contributions. I know one of the ways that folks can do it, to be a little bit more visible is, like YouTube channel or a blog. And I was working in manufacturing like 12 to 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
Even when I was working in my data analyst role, because I was the only person who had the automate experience really that they were looking for. And so it was, or at least, compared to my peers, I was a little bit more advanced. And so I didn't really have time to maintain anything other than what I was doing, really internally. So I say all that to say, if anybody has a passion for doing automation, right, you don't have to go to the great lengths of doing a lot. But if like you're comfortable like within your company, that's great too, and document like what you're working on, because it is valuable, like no matter what the industry is. So
is it a standard set of rules that have different components? One is like detect the trigger, and then process, follow this process, and then the interfacing with the other applications that you want to do it. Can you tell us more about different pieces?
Sure. So Power Automate is Microsoft's low-ish code platform. I say always ish at the end because sometimes when you want to do something a little bit more, you gotta know something. But the idea is Microsoft has about 1,000 connectors, data connectors that you can use to use this platform. So it can be across
Can I say one thing? So by data connectors, it's really connectors to other applications. It's so any application or company that you think of that has APIs, they have pre-built APIs for that specific thing.
Right.
So you use a data connector.
Right. Yeah. So I was going to say you have your M365 services, so SharePoint, OneDrive, Excel, Word, and not everything that you want to do in any of those is like exists as like the actions that you want to do, but you can probably build them. But we've got, M365 services. We also have social media connectors. And if you use SAP, sorry if that's a dirty word here, but if you use, do you use SAP or Salesforce or whatever you can think of, it might exist. And if it doesn't exist, one, you can create the connector yourself, or we can use the desktop version of the automation that can go through a web portal and automate things for you. So the possibilities are kind of endless, but you can do things, create folders, rename folders, manipulate. I think of sometimes myself as a wizard. I'm manipulating date and time with expressions. And so you have you have some triggers that you can use. So what is going to start your workflow? And the three major ones are you can manually push a button yourself. So this could be a button inside the web interface to start a flow. It could be you are using a selected, you select an item in SharePoint or for a selected OneDrive file. So you could trigger it that way. It could also be automated. So when an email comes in or when, this record changes in Dataverse, you could use that as well. And the last one is if you just want something to happen on an occurrence. So every Friday, do this thing for me. And so it can be something as simple as give me a summary of all the new records in Dataverse that were created today. It could also be, you could take it further and say, well, if this is in Dynamics, right, and we're using Dataverse there, it could be send me all the new clients that were created within the past month, create a folder on, a SharePoint site and drop these templated documents in there. You can also have all the documents renamed with the client name, the date of opportunity, even fill in the contents of the document, right? And maybe you want to send this off to your clients for them to sign. Like you could even integrate DocuSign with this, right? So you need to create these documents, stick them in a DocuSign envelope and send them right off. And then automation will wait for this package, or this envelope to be returned to continue on whatever it is. And maybe it needs a little bit of human intervention. Maybe it's just you've automated a whole business process, a part of it, something for yourself. So yeah, it's I think it's really cool.
It's one of my favorite tools to be honest. I use it for a couple different reasons. The use case that I delivered a presentation to the Tampa Dynamics user group on how to use Power Automate and a standard requirement structure to create a statement of work or to create a functional design document.
Yep.
And then basically, because I had all these items in Azure DevOps, then I was able to take all of those, kick those out into a Word template, and then that template then became something I could deliver to a client or to my business user. Yeah. And I ended up doing a workshop on it to teach people like, hey, by the way, you can do this. And then I had some people that were brand new, like, oh yeah, I'll learn how to automate this. And then they're like, okay, this is way too much. This is way too technical. I dialed it way back and then said, okay, well, here are the templates that are already available. Let's start there. And then I changed this workshop like 3 times. And so I had someone at the last workshop be like, can we like automate the requirements somehow? And then just have this, I'm like, yes, I was so excited for like that one person. And he goes, it was the most helpful thing that I could possibly have. Cause I have this one scenario and I had like the labs to show this is exactly step by step how you do it. But
yeah,
one of the things that I think can totally change how BAs do their jobs and not have to focus on every little minute detail. I used Flow to take, or Power Automate to take Microsoft Forms and then allow our stakeholders to automatically create requirements in Azure DevOps. So based upon what it was, if it was a bug or a feature or a new request. And then now, again, they don't have to use DevOps because it tends to be a very technical tool.
It is. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you can go in, you can just pick 4 or 5 little buttons, write in what this issue is, and just like a ServiceNow request or some sort of ticketing system that would go in, and then I, as the BA, can go in and review what I need to do.
Yeah. I was working as a BA for a client for a couple of months, and they were newer to Power Platform or standing up their practice. And that was one of the things I was like, we can automate some of these things, like our own personal ticketing system would be great. I was also working on a proof of concept for an organization where they were doing their HR onboarding process, right? And this is where the DocuSign integration came in.
Yeah.
And I was like, just with the click of a button inside a model-driven app, you can send off the new hire paperwork for to sign. It can come back. We can write this data to different systems, So it doesn't matter, like if you have disparate systems that don't talk to each other, we can integrate the things together and extract the data. It's really, really cool. And I feel like I was going to say also with that process, right, you've got HR, but you've also got IT that might be involved in there. You can start provisioning like accounts from Active Directory, right? Set up Active Directory accounts using automation too. And so maybe you have a gatekeeping step to approve like, okay, this information looks right, but you could just have that happen. I was going to say, going back to my original thought, sorry, but I was going to say that thought's gone. It'll come back later. The platform, I was going to say, I would say right now, Automate, I would say is probably the most challenging part of the platform. What do you think, AJ?
Pages.
Besides Pages, I was thinking pre-Pages.
Okay, so yeah, Pages is the most, only because it's web dev light.
It is actual web dev, yeah.
And that's the web dev light because like you start with, it's not quite. I don't know. I'm gonna throw out company names like Wix or something like that. It's not the WYSIWYG sort of thing where you just pop it up and go. It's that plus a lot of other things. And if you want to do anything outside of the templates, you got to know some CSS, HTML, and be able to maybe light JavaScript.
Sure.
To make it, do what you want it to do.
Sometimes you even need that for model-driven apps anyway, right? Like JavaScript and depending on what you want to do. Yeah. I
had to write a script for just recently, and I'm like dusting off those coding skills. JavaScript, and it took a second, but
yeah, but it can
review it.
It was there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd say you were asking Steve, like, how does this work? Like, is there like a formula that you follow? So yes, you have your trigger, you have some actions that you can use. So all of your data connectors will have, some of them have both a trigger and an action. Some of them will have either or. So for example, today I was working with somebody, showing them examples like, oh, let's look at the YouTube connector. The YouTube connector had triggers, but no actions. So it's like when somebody uploads a video or when I upload a video, or I forget what the other one is, but there's no actions associated with it. So you wouldn't be able to post a video to YouTube using the cloud version of the software.
Yeah.
That might take another third-party tool. But in theory, right, you're going to have a trigger. You would have subsequent actions, but you also have to design the logic to this, which sometimes things do flow in series. Sometimes it may be, oh, I need to add a condition for this. If this record is filtered on a value, if it satisfies this condition, what is the action? If no, what is the condition? Yeah. Right. So there's a few things like designing logic that comes into it when you want to do something maybe a little bit more robust, or to make your workflow a little bit more efficient, to make it run a little bit faster. But when you first start out, building in a straight line is fine. You want to get the things to work together. And AJ mentioned that there's templates that you can explore. So there's thousands of templates. Some are created by Microsoft. And so you can, in the Power Automate portal, you can plug in, keywords. So like create a file and send an email, or, send a, SharePoint and something else. So it'll recognize some keywords and filter down by the templates that are available. So some are created by Microsoft, some are created by the community. So in general, like the tech community, things like
nerds like us
that think it might be helpful.
Yeah.
And they put them there, right? So you can pick and choose what you would like. Sometimes that template isn't going to fit the exact scenario that you want, which is fine, but you can remove components from it. You can add components to it if you would like to make it your own.
Yeah.
So there's some flexibility there if you don't want to get started, building from scratch. There are some options. And then also the hot tech topic, everybody is talking about is Copilot, or Microsoft's AI. And there's like 170 roughly of these AI assistants. And yeah, there's a lot of them. Most of them were released in, GA or general availability last month. So most people probably won't get their hands on this quite yet, but in Power Platform, so, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents is now Copilot. So I have to update my bio at this point. I'm like, I'm a PVA alum. I guess. But
can we complain about that for 1 second?
Sure.
Like they had that wrapped so well into the Power Platform community, like this platform, and then they're like, what we're gonna do? We're gonna rebrand it and take it away from the Power Platform, but like it's still a part of it. But it's like it's weird.
Yeah.
Like,
it is weird. Yeah, it's now a custom Copilot that you can use. So still the same function. So it's just called custom Copilot though. Although now with it, instead of, so previously in PVA or Power Virtual Agents, you would have to build your bot, like the basics of a bot, and then you'd have to go away to the Power Automate portal to build your flow, your workflow. Now it's all in one editor, so you can do your everything in one screen, which is pretty nice. So
aren't familiar, Power Virtual Agents are basically chatbots that you're able to build within the Power Platform or the Microsoft community or ecosystem. So then if you have that, you can go in and build a chatbot for either internal or external uses. And that allows you to take the data that you already have. So if you have a customer service front and you want to be able to roll this out to your website, now you can just use this. That data would then go into whatever system that you would prefer, SharePoint, Dataverse, whatever. And then you can take that information and then do things with that. So then now you can measure customer satisfaction. You can do other actions on top of that. You can do even some front end just offloading of easy questions. So if they hit a very specific question, like how do I change my password? Here's a link for that. Now you can offload that work, and you're agents don't have to go ahead and do that, on a call.
Yeah.
Very cool tool.
Yeah, there's some and if people need help kind of envisioning that, think of the chatbots that you interact with when you go to a website that say, how can I help? Like a virtual assistant, same thing, Microsoft's version that you can use for frequently asked questions. It can be that you actually need to take your client or your customer, whomever you're building for, might need to take some sort of action. So it can be pretty robust. And now that Microsoft has also built in previously you could also activate workflows based off of that. Now it's just all in the same designer, and you can have, custom connections and whatnot to make it kind of your own. So it could be, if a customer says, I need help starting, a file for some paperwork, maybe Power Automate will create the file for you and return the link to, here's your link for that folder and all your paperwork is here. Can you go ahead and fill this out for me? Kind of thing. So really neat things. But so we've brought AI to Power Platform. And if you have a Power Platform license, this is included with your respective Power Platform license. So if you have Power Automate, you will now be able to use some AI to help you build some workflows. So like a template, you can build the basis of a workflow. This was just released, so it is a little bit buggy. It is going to take some time. I presented at Ignite on this AI in the new Power Automate designer. And I was like, we're going to liken this to a toddler. Baby toddler still like learning how to walk. And, so it's going to be some time, I think, before it's more robust. If people I'm going to mention a Copilot that some people may not be familiar with, but GitHub Copilot, go watch some videos on that. It's amazing, but GitHub Copilot has existed for years at this point. So that's not anything new. So we're scaling up the rest of them. So try to use AI to build maybe a flow for you. You just describe what you want to design it. So I think the example that I used in the video that I ended up making was every day, just send me a list of records from Dataverse in a table that I can send in an email, or send me that email. And Copilot will give you a couple of suggestions, like, is this what you're looking for? Is this what you're going to looking for? And you have to give some input, right? Remember, the AI is the virtual assistant. So it's not going to be able to know exactly what we're thinking. So it's going to offer a few suggestions and you can pick one. And then just like a template, you can add, remove things if needed. And so once you go to the Power Automate website that AJ flashed up on the screen.
I'll throw it up there again. Why not?
Yeah. When you go to that page, there is going to be a box that says, something along the lines of, let's make a workflow in a box, and then a generate button. It's not telling you it's AI, but that's AI. And so as you start typing, it's going to start populating a list of suggestions for you to be like, is it this? Is it this? Is it this? And when you hit generate, you'll see the AI do some magic and produce a workflow template for you. And you can play with it from there. So
it's really cool.
Yeah. I think it's neat how we're trying to lower the barrier to entry even further for business users and beginners. And I'm hoping that it becomes a bit more robust so that it still doesn't confuse people like business users or beginners.
Yeah. I think the thing is, and I'll say this last thing before we move on to our next segment, but when it started out, and when you started out, it was, you could do anything. And you were able to reach Twitter and do all these other things from anywhere. And then now they added some governance and security to it. So then now there's a little bit more restrictions for security experts that are looking at this going, man, I could send data from my production environment to anywhere. I don't want that.
Yeah. And that's actually a really good point. That's a really good point.
So now there's a lot more structure in governance in what you can build. So that way you're doing this the appropriate way and following other application lifecycle management best practices.
Right.
And even controls on this.
Yeah. And even organizations can set even more stringent controls. So I know when I worked in pharma, a lot of things were locked down because you don't want proprietary information leaving the company, posting to Twitter, so social media was not a part of those data connectors that you can use.
Right.
And so it is a concern with a lot of companies that I work with say, how secure really is this? And I say, well, think of it this way. We can automate data data leaving the company, your employees can also just as much take screenshots and email, things to outside of the company too, or personally post this on their social media. So think of it like this: we can put in safeguards, but you also don't want to inhibit productivity at the same time. So if it's useful to be able to use OneDrive, then, allow that, and you can put some, say maybe, we're not going to use OneDrive personal, but OneDrive for business will be applicable. Maybe it's you don't use Gmail. If your company doesn't use Gmail, don't allow that. So yeah, there are measures that you can put in place to keep a clean governance plan as well, and also make sure that you can still be efficient at the same time. So yeah.
Well, we are going to move on to our next segment, and it's called the BA Hotline. And then that's where we either answer questions that come up previously that we've saved up from other audience members, attendees asking us, or we just get to ask the audience to ask you questions live. So hold on one second.
Let's eavesdrop on the BA hotline and see what provocative project problems are awaiting us. Is your project in hot water? Operators are standing by. Ooh, that's hot.
And we're back.
I love this so much. Everything about it.
Very silly, but very fun. Yeah, you might recognize that voice.
Who's
my wife.
I was going to say, I was like, that does sound like your wife's voice, but I was.
Yeah, that'd be awkward if it wasn't, And, yeah. I know you've met her, but like, is that your wife? No, it's just some other lady. Like, yeah, that'd be weird.
All right, she's a voiceover expert. I like.
She is now. She's not going to put that on her resume at all, but I keep telling her to put it on LinkedIn and put it on there. Like, hey, I do voiceover work for very specific, hyper specific scenarios.
When the money is right, or if you're my husband.
There was no money. Yeah, there was no money.
There was just no money.
Anyway,
indirect money,
indirect. So, if you have a question for Azure about automation, about organic chemistry, or anything that you're like, anything, just go ahead and ask her. This is your time, and we'll just I'll ask you a safety question first, kind of going into it.
Okay.
And then we'll wait for anybody else to chime in. Yes, there's always. So, your favorite automation that you've created, what was the one thing that you said, you sat back and went like, I did that. That was super cool. And just kind of, one of those like.
Pop my onesie.
Yeah.
Does this have to be business related? Does this have to be home?
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever you want to share.
Okay. So I think my Costco toilet paper one is one of my favorites.
A good one.
Because it's doing things at home, and like parallelly for that was thinking ahead, like for holidays. What if you want to just buy everybody in your family a pair of socks, like a nice pair of socks or a gift card? Why don't we automate that? And so I created a workflow that goes and buys everybody like a coffee gift card and just emails it to them. And there you go. All you need is, and very simply, right? I just used an Excel sheet and had, a name and an email address, and just had it do it for me several times. And then that way you just press a button and you sit back and relax and drink your own coffee. And yeah,
you could get the toilet paper.
I could get the toilet paper, so I can also get people gifts too. And it works.
So just to clarify, the coffee one's your first favorite, but then the other one's number 2?
The TP is number 2.
I walked right into that one, didn't I? AJ.
I know.
You really do need to add that flush sound to the soundboard. I would say probably my favorite business use case was I worked with a university and a university sports team. And they had a process by which they need to review all of their workouts. There's been a regulation in place at this point. So here in the United States, there have been occurrences where student athletes might be seriously injured, gravely injured, or even pass away after, participating in a sports event. And so they came in and said, hey, we have this process where we need now 2 approval bodies to come in and approve the workouts before the coaches can do that. So we designed a series of workflows to help them, one, give the coaches an interface to submit their requests, and they could add files to it. So we used a Microsoft form, kept it very basic, Microsoft form, and then created a tracking system in SharePoint, because they were a SharePoint-based organization, for us to track the requests that were coming in and their approval statuses, and then had adaptive cards in Teams tagging each of the appropriate people who were coaches, or the approvers, so that if there were multiple approvers, we didn't have multiple people doing work at the same time. They could claim the request, and then they'd get the actual paperwork. And same thing, we had sharing links on there. So all the paperwork is saved in SharePoint in a document library. But it sped up their approval process by a lot, because normally they'd have to turn these requests around within 72 hours, because the coaches could submit workouts for, later this week or this month. We kind of just streamlined it for them, because before they were just using emails. And so a coach would just email a request to all of, the potential approvers, and then wouldn't know if who's doing the work. Sometimes it'd be multiple people do the work. Sometimes nobody ends up doing the work, right? Because they think somebody else has tackled it. So it helped manage workloads, help with approval. We could capture the comments. It kept an audit repository for everybody with a few clicks, right?
That's awesome.
A few buttons. So I thought that one was a lot of fun. As well.
It's very involved.
So yeah.
There's a lot of steps in it, which, I think are the cool part about that. You can have, either flows within flows, or flows call other flows. So once you get to a certain spot, you can say, call this other one. That's kind of neat. Especially if you're waiting for things like a DocuSign or an approval or something like that, then that one doesn't get hung up when it just triggers. It just calls it and it waits. So
yeah. And also something to point out to listeners, if you want to get started in this, you don't have to imagine an entire business process. If you have one that you're like, I'd like to see if I could do it.
But you can, and you can use Visio. You can use Visio to create your Power Automate flows for you.
Yes, but I was going to say, even just automating a portion of the thing is one less thing for you to do by hand, right? So if it's the end of the process that you're like, okay, maybe I'll try that, or the beginning, or somewhere in the middle, you can break it down into chunks too. So you don't have to think about, man, it's going to be a little overwhelming to do the entire thing end to end. It might take you a while to do this. There's a reason why consulting firms exist when you have a really big business process to tackle, right? You've got multiple people working on something. So take your time. It's totally okay. Do it in chunks.
Can you do a decision tree offline and upload that? Or is that?
So you can do a decision tree if you are you can do it in Visio and then link that up, and so that you can have your your if statements, whatever. So that way, if you say, if this happens, do this other thing, and it's an action, and then that will build a condition in our Automate, and you can just take that flow and you can actually map if it's connected, and it has to use the BPMN notation or business process modeling notation. So
nerd alert.
I know. Anyway, so then you can take that, and it has to be in that notation, because then that's going to allow it to upload into Power Automate, and you can connect it, and then you can just build the actual step right there. So whatever the start of your process flow is, then you can have all of that go in there and trigger that action, go in, trigger the condition. It's really cool. I don't think you could do switch statements. I don't recall.
From Visio?
Yeah. Because I don't think Visio has the switch control. I don't know. But anyway, it's kind of neat. But to be honest, it's hard to do it if you've already built that flow and that you haven't linked it, because there's a specific flow that you're creating in Visio, a specific type of flow that you have to do it. You can't go other way unless you copy paste it in there. So.
Wait, you're saying from flow to Visio?
Visio to flow.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, but if you can go from flow to Visio too, which is pretty cool as well, because now you already got this logic that you've built, and someone goes, I need documentation on this. How do you do that? You go, and then it just kicks it out.
Yeah, there are like a couple of really neat tools. I think one's actually called Power Tools, and it'll do the same thing for you and put it in a PDF. Yeah, there's a lot of really neat like third-party things that you can use to help make the lift a little bit easier for the aspects that, you know, you don't build the flow, but you need documentation or, you know, business requirements or anything else. And you can use it on either end of the actual process that you're building too. So the possibilities are endless.
They are.
Excellent.
All right. Well, I will throw this up here. So if you have questions and you want to ask our guest experts on anything that they are experts in, or about just anything in business analysis, or just, you know, for fun's sake, literally anything, go to analystsafterdark.com and fill out your own inquiry on the BA hotline. That takes us to our next segment, which is the confessions. So let's come right back for that.
And now it's time for BA Confessions.
All right. So we also go back and we look at anything else somebody has submitted and see what kind of confessions we have out there that we can read off from that you've observed in there. So since we don't have any here today, what we can do though is ask you for your favorite confession of something that you've either done yourself, or you've been building out, let's say a Power Automate flow, and then you built a recursive loop that never ended. Or, or something.
Yeah. So how long ago is this? I was relatively new in Power Automate.
Keep it there.
Yeah. I was relatively new in Power Automate, and my company, I didn't know anything about ALM or application lifecycle management. So there was no dev test prod environments in order to build things. You know where this is going.
Yep.
And so, but we were also like newly adopting Power Platform. There weren't a lot of digital guardrails in place. I only had access to the default environment, right? Which is also where you don't want to be building business solutions. Yeah. I came in at like the pioneer stage, man. It was the Wild West out there. So I was building a workflow or series of workflows for a group that dealt with product deviations. So anything that we changed in our process, like that happened on the floor, you know, you accidentally disconnect a pipe, or, you know, the concentration of the drug didn't come out right, you know, a deviation. So I wanted to automate this process that they had for their reporting, which was a series of like copying templates and renaming them and dropping some things into the templates of the PowerPoint and the Word document and sending out notifications. Yeah. And I accidentally created this loop, and this was before Power Automate. So if you're going to use an action or a trigger, that's something like when a new item is created in a SharePoint list or modified. So when a new item is created or modified, if you add a certain action underneath related to SharePoint that's like update this item, it creates this infinite loop. So you have to then build in some logic to be like, only let this loop run one time, or check to see if this record exists, or don't do anything. Power Automate didn't used to have a warning that said, if you put these two things together, you're going to create an infinite loop. I think I sent out 14,000 emails to the same people. Had no idea. This was at night. I'm working on something really late at night, and I leave my computer and I go eat dinner, and I come back about 4 hours later. I was like, that's funny. This flow is still running. And now I'm getting kickbacks from Outlook. Outlook's like, you can't send any more emails, and it's kicking back. And so I looked in, because it started deleting things too. And so my deleted folder is getting bigger and bigger. I'm like, what on earth did I do? I still don't know how I did it. And I had to message the manager of that group on Teams to be like, I'm really sorry if you've been receiving a ton of notifications. You can just filter these to trash. And he's like, I figured you were making magic over there. It's okay. So he was very gracious in that. But to imagine getting thousands of emails, and the title of the email was "The Unicorn is Alive." So it wasn't even something business related. That was. I never made that mistake again. I'll tell you that much. And then
how we always learn from that, and we go, I will never do that again. I deleted the production table, or I've, whatever. And it's just like, I will never make that mistake again.
Never make it again. Yeah, I was like using some SharePoint list that they were actively using. And I don't remember if I wanted to make sure like the email addresses worked or something. So I saw it send one time and I was like, okay, this is a test. And I told them it was a test. And I think this must have been on a Friday, maybe a Saturday, because Monday rolled around and one of my colleagues in that group, she's like, Azure, what happened? I can't even send an email right now. It's so clogged up. And I was like, just filter these to trash. I gave everybody just a screenshot of like direction by direction what they needed to do. But,
oh no.
Yeah.
You didn't want to automate that?
I'm surprised that Power Automate didn't like kick me out from. I'm surprised I didn't hit any limits, like rate limits or something.
Well, as you said, it was new. And so I'm sure that at that point they hadn't thought about that. And like they're the guardrails, it's not like, bumper bowling where it was, whatever strike. It was just
Right.
like any lane is yours.
Yeah, that was really entertaining. Everybody was so nice about it too. I was just like, I'm really, really, really sorry. I don't know how this happened, and filter all of these to trash, because they're like, how many emails did it send? I was like, I don't know. On my end, it says this many, but at some point it started kicking things back. So your guess is as good as mine. But yeah, don't make infinite loops, people.
Don't do that.
So email had failed before the process actually finished. It was still going.
It was still going. Still going. And there wasn't a way to be able to cancel individual like runs in bulk. I think now you can do up to 25 at a time. Yep. So now it's 20. I know that 20 at a time. Okay, so you can do 20 at a time, but imagine thousands of these things happening. There was no way for me to do it. And I think more recently somebody was like, because we had a newer employee at the company who accidentally set off a loop, and she was like, I mean, there's hundreds of them. How do we get rid of them? And I was like, you know what? When I don't think doing 20 at a time is going to really help us out. So I just messaged, one of my group chats and was like, guys, what's the way that we handle this these days? And somebody's like, just make a copy of the flow and delete the original one, and that should stop it. And I was like, is it that simple now? And it worked. So yeah, it depends.
So the lesson is build an account and don't go beyond one.
Send it to yourself first.
Send it to yourself.
Use your email for that, and then send it to yourself. And that way you go, I'm an idiot. And then you can see that your own email.
But now I'm a genius because I know how to not do it again.
That's true. I will say, even to date, like I think I've created one Power Automate flow that worked the first time, like the first run without any changes.
Without any changes. That's impressive.
No, it's only the other way. But like,
oh, okay.
Yeah. There you go. Because at some point I'm always like, oh, I need to go back and do this, or I'll build 6 or 7 steps or 8 steps first, and then I'll just go, oh, that's probably right, and then I'll run it and then test it, and it's not right, and then I have to go back in, hit the find the terminate button, control, and put that back in there and stop it, instead of like all of the other people that do it, and they're like, they go 3 steps, run it, add another one, run it, another one, run it.
I think, do you like chaos? Because that's a really good way to build. If you want there was, recently a colleague and I on a project built a 20-step flow that had a series of loops and many-to-many relationship table, built it in one go, and it worked the first time. And we were just like, hell yeah. Like, I don't know if we'll ever be able to recreate that, but it was pretty cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's when you stop working for the day. You go out and celebrate, because your day is not going to get any better than that. Like, you are not going to be any more productive than you were.
I'm still riding the high from that one.
I would.
Yeah.
And buy a lottery ticket or two.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I forget to buy lottery tickets. I remember when you used to be able to, at least here in Virginia, they you can only buy them at certain locations now, so it's out of sight, out of mind. But I remember as a kid when I'd go to the grocery store, and I grew up in Orlando, you could go to the grocery store to the customer service counter, or even at the register, you could just buy lottery tickets there, or scratch offs or what have you. And so I'll never be a millionaire or have the chance to, because
Well, at least not that path.
Not that way.
Yeah.
what's the other way? I don't think content
Okay.
creation, isn't it?
No.
You're already doing it though.
Maybe. Or it's using Copilot to figure out what the mathematical formula was for the scratchers anyway. And then you figure out what that algorithm was, and you're like, cool. And then now you just go and buy a block of tickets.
That still means I have to go to the store though to go buy the
that's
tickets.
True. Okay.
Yeah, I hear in Europe, like in the UK, you can just go to a website and buy like lottery tickets.
That sounds sketchy.
Yeah.
I imagine that probably gets a lot of people in trouble. They do have like some limits, money limits that you can spend or what have you. But yeah, we
I'm
don't
just talking
have
about
that.
like, since random numbers don't exist, like you can't just type in random into it. Like even the rand function in Excel isn't random.
Right.
It's based on a formula, right? And
In
so-
a high enough quantity, you're gonna hit the repetition.
It's
There is a rand in Automate too. But
same thing.
It's all based on an
is
algorithm.
it still based on? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So random numbers truly don't exist. They just go through a series of formulas. Yeah.
Automated random numbers. To know
So, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that you can automate. I know somebody right now who is working on a project to use OpenAI to create a dictionary of all the expressions you could use in Power Automate and use it in like Notepad++, which I thought was really cool. And I saw a video on this the other day, so I'm really excited for them to release it. I'm hoping they're going to release it publicly, and if not, at least put out a video to be like, look at this really cool thing that I built with AI and Power Automate. And I was just like, that is sexy. I'd use that.
Can you imagine yourself 5 years ago talking about what you just said and using the words "that is sexy"? I would use that, and then just saying like, no.
No, I couldn't. I didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I remember going to a town hall at one of the companies that I worked for when I first started working. And it was like folks who found themselves, in their dream jobs, and they were in their 40s, and above. And the one thing that always stuck with me was their paths were littered with detours. Like nobody ever made the straight way to where they got today. Some people started businesses and realized they hated running a business, or they went to grad school for something completely unrelated. And so I just kept taking jobs to be like, oh, I think this is interesting. And when it didn't satisfy, or, the workplace just didn't fit me anymore, I'd find something else, and stumbled into this. And man, I think this is the happiest that I've ever been in, a career field too, quite frankly. And
awesome.
Yeah.
Doing the show on that. That's awesome.
Yeah. People are lovely. The community's super friendly. I know I can call up people anytime, day or night. I respect boundaries though, and I won't do that. But there's always somebody available, and it's such a global community too. All the folks that I've met usually have originated from Twitter. And or, working with community upskilling initiatives. So how I met AJ, and I don't know. It's just been it's a very unique, I would say, area to be in, and just know that you have friends kind of everywhere you go. My mom calls them my friends in my computer. Mama Cloud calls them friends in my computer. And so it's been a lot of fun. It really has been a lot of fun, just knowing that you have a lot of support too, and where I haven't found maybe support before.
Well, I wouldn't say that that's just them, because you're the same way. So I know that I've actually texted you like, hey, quick question about this, and it was on Power Automate, and you were on your vacation. And I think you were in Spain or something like that, and you're like,
yeah.
And I'm like, you're texting me back on vacation. This is what are you doing? Shut up. Just go have fun.
Yeah, you did. I think you might have actually, it might have been twice. I think once when I was in Cancun, and that was actually business related. But I think you were asking me about coming on the show when I was on vacation. You were like, "Why on earth are you messaging me when you're on vacation?" I was like, "I didn't want to be rude and wait a week because I was going to be there for a week. So I thought I'd be nice and answer." And then I got yelled at, but that's okay.
It was very nice. You didn't get yelled at. It's just like I value my own vacation time. And so then when it's and I say that, and then I was on vacation recently. We were in Vancouver, and we went to Whistler. And then somebody asked me a question about, it was the old CRM admin that I'd worked with. He asked me a question about how do you do this, and how do you change a model-driven app back to its original settings? Because I had gone in and I messed something up, and I'm like, well, Microsoft gives you these cool things called solutions so that you can roll it back. And then he's just like, aha. But I'm answering this as I'm sitting across from my wife, and we're trying to have breakfast. And she has this massive pancake in front of her, and she's looking at me, and she's not touching it until I'm done texting. And I know the look that she's giving me, and it's like, this look, like it's like under the eyebrows, and I'm like I'm trying to text as fast as possible.
As fast as you can.
Go, thumbs, go. And because I wanted to be able to answer his question, but at the same time, like, okay, I'm done. And I didn't touch my phone.
Boundaries are healthy. I found it really, really easy to, you want to help, somebody reaches out, but it's totally okay. I've learned over the past couple of years to be like, no. And usually like the emergency, and I've usually found that the questions when people ask them aren't a 5-minute question either. It's going to take some significant time. So I know
like, I need to know what scenario you tried and what you didn't try, whatever. So it's never 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's a 5-second ask.
It's a 5-second ask,
45-minute answer.
Correct. Yeah. So when I'm on vacation, and I make it very clear, like I very rarely answer the phone at this point. When I am out, I am out. That is my hardcore boundary. In your case, when you were asking like, hey, you want to come on the show, kind of thing, I didn't want to just be like, well, I'm out of office for an entire week, and I don't know if I had let you know in advance that I wasn't going to be there. So yeah, at least I just wanted to be polite. But I had somebody message me on Thanksgiving. They're like, I know it's Thanksgiving, but I needed help. And I was like, nope.
See, it would be fun to automate a response based on the country that you're vacationing in. So use the language of whatever vacation location.
Hola.
And respond that way, saying, hello, I'm on vacation.
So so like I this is usually like on my phone too, so it'll be some sort of messaging app. LinkedIn, I feel like it's, if you don't answer for a couple days, that's kind of standard because LinkedIn is LinkedIn. But they do also have now an out of office message setting, and I also have most notifications turned off on my phone, so it's more of a pull notification rather than a push notification to draw me in. And yeah, for messaging, especially for WhatsApp, I need to figure out a way. I know there's a connector now for WhatsApp to start automating some messages if it's not from these particular groups. Because I've had some people also, I don't know how they got my number per se, but I've definitely gotten some invites to be like, hey, can you come talk at my user group, or my user group is doing this, and I'm like, how on earth did you get my number?
DJ.
And they don't introduce themselves either. It's just some random kind of thing that's, hey, my user group is doing, I don't know who you are. Ooh, help. So
stranger danger.
Stranger danger. We were just talking about before we came on the show about like how your phone numbers are accessible to people, and you're just like, it could be anybody.
It's anybody. Yeah. All right. Well, last call. It's last call. So that means that we are wrapping up for the evening. First of all, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been fantastic. You are always a lot of fun, and I enjoy learning from you. And I do actually, one of my favorite things that I learned about you was that you learn from yourself sometimes. You were struggling with an issue, and then you had gone back to your own Twitter account. And
yes. Kind of becomes very meta sometimes. You're like, oh man, I can't remember how I did this thing, and you find your own solution on the internet.
Nice.
You are just one of the most, I think, authentic people that I know. So it's been great having you on here. Thank you so much for spending your time with us.
Thank you for having me. This was a ton of fun, and I'm doing my Jimmy Pesto dance, like with the music.
Steve is the dancer of the group, so he's the one that's always like, if he's in the mood, like you see his shoulders bumping, and
You'll see. You'll notice.
Well, is there any message or any note that you want to leave for anybody else watching?
Ew. Go forth and automate instead of be fruitful and multiply.
Nice.
Go forth and automate.
That's
Yeah, feel free to connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn. I'm almost chronically online just because of the nature of our of this industry, and I'll see what I can do to help. If I don't have the answer, I know somebody else does.
That's it.
And we'll get you connected for sure. Like if a Google search hasn't helped you, reach out. We'll see what we can do.
Well, that's our show, everybody. So this is Analysts After Dark, reminding you to stay curious
And stay positive.
Stay dark.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Bye, everyone.